Okay, this is the 11th public service announcement on filedevidence.com's Exhibit 11. And this one covers the bank scams, insiders, racketeered U.S. government fraudulent filings. Of course, the Constitution, First Amendment, and the Whistleblower Act allow this full disclosure, and it serves others as an international consultant of economic and government choices. Now, within the U.S. and the Constitution rule of law, the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, the scam's multitude of violations against it, and deceptive forms. In other words, when anybody produces a deceptive forms, any person who violates this section shall be liable in the same extent and in the same manner as the debt collector is liable. So if you produce deceptive forms, you're placing yourself under a lot of liability. Now, this is nothing new. During the Civil War, the False Claims Act was implemented because there was so much corruption during any civil war that it'll collapse any nation's economy. And they call this False Claims Act, they called it the Lincoln Law, and it was against economic treason to keep the economy from collapsing and losing the war. And in the False Claims Act, for every count, it's a $2,000 fine to the government. And for every violation of law, it's a $2,000 fine for each violation of law, even way back in the Civil War. And this is federal designated funding. And it's been updated to triple the retribution owed for anybody that does this. Now, the executive and the legislative branches enacted this act to keep the economy from falling apart during the war. Now, the executive and the legislative branches know full well that when they create an act or taxations or anything, when they get home, they're they're subject to the same laws that they wrote. And the executive and legislation branches count on the judicial branch to enforce these acts. And then came the Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organization Act, which is RICO, and it demands another tripling of fines and tripling of retribution owed. So the idea is to keep people from doing this corruption. And in other words, if it's $1 worth of retribution you owe times the False Claims Act is times 3, is $3. Now you times the RICO Act, if it's racketeers like this is, it's $9. So for every $1 worth of retribution you owe to the government or the victims, it's $9 just to keep people from doing the corruption. Now today's announcement, it goes over the same thing that's been filed all along, the double deeds and filing by the bank scam on Exhibit 1, filing in the wrong county, filing with the wrong legal description, changing it, going back and then changing it, and the ones with the wrong account numbers, and the list goes on, but this is a brief summary that's in this to let you know exactly what's going on. And in Exhibit 11, it covers that on February the 6th, 2015, I delivered the agreed to April 2015 land auction. Now, of course, the corruption of the bank scam had slandered all the titles, and so how could you close an auction with the slandered titles? You couldn't do it. But anyway, I didn't know they were slandered at the time, and I delivered this to the bank on February 6, 2015. unbeknownst to me, 3 days later, on February the 9th, 2015, the bank director's lawyer law firm filed foreclosure against me. And of course, the rule of law requires 2 prior certified letter notifications of foreclosures, which would give me an option to hire a lawyer or do whatever I need to do to get these losers off of my back. And it's a very hasty RICO confiscation for March 3rd, 2015. Now, if the bank scam foreclosed on it, it would help clear up all the illegal titles that they had, all the slander titles that they had done that couldn't have been sold in the April auction. And of course, I can't let all 7 farms go simultaneously on 5 different courthouse step sales for a measly 19 cents on the dollar, 19 cents of indebtedness on a dollar's worth of equity. So of course I'm forced to file bankruptcy protection. And unfortunately, when you're forced to file for bankruptcy protection, this stigma stays with you for the rest of your life. If you were one of the top people that people like to do business with and always wanted to, now you're at the bottom. People will only do business with you if they have to. And of course, miraculously, when the bank director's lawyer's law firm filed all these foreclosures, it was miraculously in the correct counties and with the correct legal descriptions. It would be pretty hard to government confiscate property that isn't real. And later on, when we get to Exhibit 21, you'll see where the moment they file for foreclosure, my assets become theirs. And it shows where the bank scam counted my 7 ranches as their collateral, plus the 3 imaginary ones they did on Apache Point, Arthur Quarter, and the AA twice. And then again later in Exhibit 23A, 23B, 23C, 23D, 23E, 36, and 37 confirms the premeditated price fixing and double deed filings of the recordings. Now, in the under the so-called bankruptcy protection, the handbook, the trustee is required to review every document that's been filed, and if he finds anything suspicious, which there's plenty to be suspicious about, the trustee is supposed to contact the U.S. trustee or the U.S. Marshal Service and or the U.S. attorney to turn over any suspicious activity within the bankruptcy. Now, on the 9th Public Service Announcement, Part 2, shows the courts and the jurisdictions that so chose to rule in favor of these new case law changes to promote, endorse, and help the bank scam. Now, on these new case laws, constitutionally, we're all created equal. Now, anyone is judicially allowed a multitude of deceptive forms, fraudulent filings, false claims, and RICO violations to slander anyone's title, to breach anyone's fiduciary duty and lender liability, to victimize anyone from refinancing their excessive equity, to price fix collateral, to double collateralize twice anyone's collateral, and with unknown account numbers. Now here we go again. This unknown account number 1660414 keeps popping up, and I need documentation of who this belongs to, because it doesn't belong to me, but it keeps showing up on my document, and it would be nice to know who this includes. But anyway, this Constitution allows anybody to government confiscate anyone's property with deceptive forms and false claims, while they refuse the existence of documentation and the signatures thereof. Throughout the whole process, and still today, the bank still refuses to produce the loan documents and the signatures to say, yeah, they had a right to do that. Now anyone can go in and change anybody's property's legal description to an illegal description, as the bank did. And they can price fix any bidding in any federal bankruptcy court's ordered land auction, like the bank director lawyer's son did. And of course, now any loser can judicially allow any of these acts of economic treason under this new case law changes. And of course, as we've talked before, this is constitutionally and judicially your get out of jail free card. If you're sitting in prison for doing these things, this should be your get out of jail free card, out of prison and out of fines. And this avoids any prosecutor from prosecuting any like-kind felons, and allows any future felons unsustainable short-term ill-gotten gains based on the new case law changes. Now, under international consulting of economic and government choices, again, the international market simply don't care which nation's courts landmark decisions favored the federal felon accomplices' economic treason against the Constitution, the rule of law, or the federal designated funding. Now, what did you think was going to happen? Well, of course, when you rule non-cash flowing economic treason in favor of it, of course your nation's economy is going to spiral out of control and collapse and eliminate a nation's acquired wealth, just like the reason the False Claim Act was implemented during the Civil War. It's going to cause the inevitable. And well, of course, international market, cash flowing global trading partners, they kind of stopped trading with nations that aren't cash flowing with such foolish economic and government choices. And of course, any nation who judicially failed to nip this blatant corruption in the bud, like the judicial branch is supposed to, this is their job, you'll wind up with the usual food riots, saber rattling, and wars of government confiscation to temporarily prop up any nation's foolish choices of non-cash flowing economic and government choices. Fortunately, the U.S. Constitution checks and balances, and the U.S. patriotic duty is to constitutionally file like-kind filings against those who were foolish enough to participate as the federal felon accomplices, and especially within the jurisdictions that they created, inflicted, and allowed this economic treason, as the U.S. Constitution's checks and balance of what goes around comes around. In other words, if you were involved in this and you created this, well, you're subject to the same in return. This will constitutionally avoid the U.S. economy from collapsing from within, and will promote the U.S. global trading and continue to allow the U.S. to acquire wealth, and for all of mankind's global economy. This promotes everybody's whenever everybody's on board. When one nation turns toward corruption, it affects everybody's global economy. Now, this constitutionally avoid the U.S. economy from collapsing from within, to promote the U.S. global trading and acquire the wealth for the economy. For the U.S. Constitution, founding fathers knew full well, you surround yourself with good people and good things will happen. You surround yourself with losers and you will become one of them.